screen. We'll try to do this fast because we know that you guys have exams, and although not many of you are from first years, but still. Let's start with the crypto. They were really easy. So, like a couple of cryptos, when you look into the cryptos, you will the more you participate, you will keep on seeing a common pattern. Like either it will be something related to base 64, or it can be something like Caesar cipher or something like that. So I have these files over here. Let's look into this ones. So as you can see, the very first thing that comes to mind is it's somewhat in the format that was given to us, that it's GLUG, but the letters doesn't seem right. And like whenever I see something like this, what I try to do is I try to apply ROT-N, which is a form of Caesar cipher. You can go to this website rot13.com. It's really good, and it has the entire range of all the ROT. So when I just try to brute force, I can just press the down key and keep on checking which one makes sense. And right here, so this is the first flag. I'm adding this one over here as well. Cool. So this is a basic ROT13, also known as the Caesar cipher, right? Moving on to the next problem. There's another Caesar cipher. You can, this one. Let's do this as well. You can't solve this Brutus, so this is a reference to Caesar, of course. And I think there was a big text. If you put that, and probably at ROT7 or something like that, it gave the exact words. So just showing it to you. Right. So this was the original cipher. And when you apply the this one, at ROT7, it gives me the exact text. Now, this type of ciphers are called monoalphabetic substitution, because you see the A over here represents H, and the A everywhere else will also represent H. So if you look at something like, I don't remember, there was another website. Alphabetic cipher. So basically, these ciphers are like that for every, what should I say? If you have for every character set, like for A to Z, it will map to a particular number set as well. So like A will become, let's say X, B will become Y, and so on. This is monoalphabetic substitution cipher, monoalphabetic cipher. Then there is some form of cipher known as polyalphabetic cipher. If you have heard about the Vigenère cipher, this is an example of polyalphabetic cipher where A at one point can refer to B, and somewhere in the text it will then refer to X or something else. You can look into the Wikipedia to learn more about this stuff. I'm also adding the topics. See, we cannot go in depth of every topic over here because CTF is not something, it's very large, it's very broad. What you have to do is you have to research on your own and look into this different types. I'm just adding the topics over here. You can Google those stuff. You can look at the online solvers that are available. And if you want, you can also create your own script ready. There was one more, okay, there is one solver, I don't remember. Most of the monoalphabetic substitution cipher can be solved online. What they do is they look at a frequency of each alphabet, because so if you look at the frequency, it's a standard frequency that E letter is the most frequent, T is the second most frequent, and what they will do is, like in a text like this, you can count the frequency of each letter. Like A has occurred, let's say X number of times. Then you can map and you can sort it out, and then you just map it with this alphabet cipher as well, alphabets as well. Then you will get the whatever is the most frequent letter over here, that has to become an E. But of course, that will only work for monoalphabetic substitution. And you can always find, look at over here. So you can get the ciphers over here. You can see this one word which is jumbled up, and you can decrypt, and it can give you the decrypted results as well. This website.
Zoom a little bit.
So, starting to zoom at actually. So like it will give you the like, I mean, monoalphabetic substitution solver can be, you can find this online. You don't have to work on it. And yeah, it did something. I don't understand what it's doing. Anyways, moving on. Coming to hex citing. So this is another type of problems where you will given the hex and you can have to find the corresponding text. The only thing about all the cipher problems that was given over here is that you can just write one line of Python code and that will solve it for you. So moving to hex citing, if you look at the cipher file, this was a cipher. What I do is usually I try to use Python interpreter to to make it easier for me. So first of all, it pretty much looks like a hex because all the characters are from 0 to 9 and A to F. Nothing else, no other characters are used. So you can just copy it over here. So let's say S equals to. And we know how a hex works is you take the first 40, all the characters in the ASCII text or the printable characters range from 127 to 256, right? And 255. So that is just 2 digits of hex characters. So what we have to do is we have to break this down into groups of 2. So we can do this as like S of. I'm using Python. Yeah, so I think if you're working with CTFs, you should know Python very well because it will help you a lot, because you will see most of the problems, the scripts that I wrote are in Python because there are lots of modules available, and you will also find lots of scripts online which are written in Python as well. So I'm using list comprehension to basically break it down into groups of 2. So over here, then what I can do is I can just convert every hexadecimal value to integer, and invalid of this. Oh, sorry, it's not byte. It should be 16, right? It's hex, so it's I have to put the base over here. So yeah, you get the base over here, and then we can use the and pass it through CHR, which will give me the corresponding character. And just join it up. You can already see the flag. There you go. So this is the flag. So basically it was just one line of Python and we give you the flag, right? And you can see how easy it became when I use Python interpreter. So that was the next part. Moving on to subtraction. This was, okay, let me show you the code again. This is again a form of monoalphabetic substitution if we look into it properly. Let's see. So yeah, so 144, 145. So these all seem to be, some sort of relationship, because we know the ultimate final flag will be of the format GLUG, right? And if you see the difference between the character G and the character L, it is same as the difference, it's 5, so it's same as the difference between over here, right? And so what I can do over here, I can just create a check. So like difference A, comma, and C, where I'm going to return A minus. So if you look at the difference between 140 and say G, you get 69, and L, sorry, it's 145 and L, you get 69 again, 154 and U. So basically you have to add 69 to this every one of them, and sorry, subtract 69 from every one of them, and then you will get the, convert it into the corresponding ASCII alphabet character, and you will get the flag. So I think I wrote the pi as this one. Yeah. So that's what I did. This was the encoded form. I converted it into the, just subtracted 69 from it, converted into the character, and then I got the flag. This was the third subtraction. Battle of Waterloo. This question was copy pasted from I think some year of Pico CTF. It had this cipher called the nautical cipher. Waterloo. Have I written? Okay, this is not the nautical cipher. This is something. What is the name of the cipher? I forgot.
Pigeon cipher.
Pigeon cipher. Yeah. There was another question with the nautical cipher, I guess.
Yes,
So
yes, facts.
you will like come across. You don't have to learn all this thing. You can just the way I searched was the ciphers with dots and cross lines. I searched like that, and I looked at the Google images, and whichever matched, I checked with that one. You don't have to remember this type of ciphers. Like usually in nice contest, you will not get questions like this where you have to guess what cipher it is. You have to work out the cipher. That will be much more important. These are not even like this one. I think this one was a nautical cipher question where slash. I think someone is unmuted this. Yeah, this one was the question with the nautical cipher. Even I think I can just Google it online. Nautical ciphers. Even not all the images were actually working. I think this one worked for me. Yeah. So this one is a cipher. You can actually see there is a huge resemblance with this. So this should work, right? I'm not adding these ciphers in the list because I don't think it's worth wasting time on these stuffs. It all started in Greece. All these numbers seem random. Yeah, so this one was another question. Again, so when I see a question like this, what I did was I copied something like Greek number cipher, copied like this, and then came Polybius square. So I never heard of this cipher before, and I just looked into it. If you look at the cipher, it's like a 5x5 grid, and it has A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, and all written in it, right? But if you look at the numbers that are provided, so the numbers had 6, 1, 6, 2, and everything like that. So this is a traditional Polybius square. I don't know how it's pronounced. Then I came across another image. This was some sort of like, I don't know what, like advanced form of Polybius square where it has 6x6 grid and it also has numbers, which makes sense because most of the CTF flags were in leet, so there were numbers and alphabets. And then I wrote like a simple script to just to decode that one. Not necessarily you can do it by hand, but so I just matched it with the particular found the particular row and the column, and I matched it with the number. It was like if you knew what type of cipher it is, it was pretty easy. Just like yeah, so it all started in Greece. Something like this is written in leet. One of the most important things some of you guys are missing is wrapping the flag in the flag format. Make sure that you do that always. Most of the time, it's the situation. Highs and lows was kind of like simpler. I'm showing you the code. Did I even write that code? I may not written it. Save it over here, ciphertext. So you can see this is like all with something like one is the closing bracket and the exclamation mark. And again, it made sense that it can be binaries because there are two symbols used. So one can represent 0, another one can represent 1. And so again, I used Python interpreter for this. So now the question was which one is which one is 0 and which one is 1. So I first tried with I think the exclamation mark reminded like it seemed to be 1. It makes sense. It's just a guess, but and the closing bracket was 0. So and then you get this zeros and ones. And if you look at the len of this S, so it's 304 and it's I think divisible by 8. So I can break it into square like parts of 8. And also I check the first part. So if you look at S of 0 to 8, It's integer of, I need to know what kind of partition that is made, right? So 71 and 71 character is what, G, I guess. And there you go. So you can just again write something like that, that lists comprehension, and you can break this entire thing into 8888 and parts, and every one of them will give you the flag. I think you guys can do it. I'm not writing it again. I will upload all the scripts that I wrote. I've written it down. So I will upload it to a GitHub repo. You can check it over there. XOR rocks. Okay, this was one of the nice problems, you can say, over here. You will come across XOR a lot of time, because XOR is actually used in a lot of ciphers. There is one cipher called one-tap pad cipher. You can check it out. It uses XOR to XOR the key with it, and it comes a lot. Actually, it comes a lot in some of the standard CTFs. So this is one. Okay, let's coming back to this question. So does it so? Yes, so. So if you look at this one is the cipher text. On the first glance, it made sure that it's some kind of either base 34 or base 64 character. You can always distinguish with a number of equal to's at the end. Base 64 cannot have more than 4 equal to's at the end. I think cannot have more than 3 equal to's at the end. It will, and there is here we have like something like 6 equal to's. So it was base 32. Again, you can read more about base 34. There was one really nice question about base 64. I read, and I think it was in Armstrong City or something like that. Okay, there is another typical base that is not very commonly known, which is the base 48. You can check that out as well, like in the chef. Always keep this tab with this website open, because it's very helpful. And I think base 48. Is it base 47 or what?
58, I think.
58. Yeah, 58, sorry. Wow. Okay, didn't give nothing much. It should give something. Yeah, so it has 58 characters, that's why it's not displaying all the thing. Okay, so yeah, makes sense. 58. Why would it be 48? Yeah, this is one like not very common base. Anyways, if you look into now, whenever you're giving problems like this, you check the decrypt.py, and what you see is first you give them the message, the same message over here. Okay, wait, this is the one I wrote. Sorry, get the encrypt.py. So yeah, in encrypt.py, you have the key, the message, and okay, the key must contain. Okay, here is what the encryption part actually occurs, right? So what it is doing, it's going through every character of the message, and it's XORing with the message and the key, with the character and the key, and then it is outputting the result by encoding in base 32. So I wrote a similar thing, just reverse the entire approach to decrypt it. So here is the message I have, and yeah, so what I did for every point, I brute force this thing. So string.printable gives you all the printable strings that are available. So for every index, I brute forced it with all the keys that are possible. Then I will, among those keys, I can check which one starts with the GLUG. So if you run this Python script, it will give me see, all of them. Some of them are not readable, but you can see the GLUG file over here, right? At this point, I will like to introduce you with one of the most important tool, which is the grep command. So the grep has lots of possibilities. Like, it is very powerful, but basically you can search patterns in each file, and you will be using this a lot in the shell question that was given. It makes life easier, really. So I can grep over here. Okay, so it's binary. What's the grep minus b, right? For binary file. No, binary byte offset.
Strings করে দেন
It's outputting it, so you
Oh,
can
yeah.
directly do it, right? Within string inclusive.
Okay, okay, so. Yeah, so strings, what it does is it gets rid of all the non-printable characters. So just let me remove this thing. You can see there was lots of gaps in between previously, but right now there is no such gap. And then it will grep, and when you're doing grep, it's looking for all the files that starts with this GLUG, and it will directly print you the flag that's needed. So with this, we are done with the crypto. So if you guys, anyone of you had any doubt regarding the crypto? So it is similar to within the final answer. The final answer didn't come. I used online XOR decoder. Did you go through all the possible strings, like all the possible characters, or you just?
Yes. I think the key was 5F in hexadecimal.
Like I don't know what the key is. I can just.
I think it's a 5F or a 95 in binary.
I can print the corresponding key as well. So this is the encrypt file. So this is the so. I can also put a check over here that will make it easier. So result is something like XOR BNC and C, right? And if the result, the first four characters, so 0 to 4, 0 to 4, yeah, is equals to, so GLUG. Then I'm going to print this one along with the, I'm going to print the key is it should work as well. I should have done this one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, underscore. Yes.
Oh, this underscore was the key. I think you didn't try that one. Okay, so that was.
That is a 5F in hexadecimal, I think.
Okay. So what I do is like for this case, I use the string module and string.printable. You can gives you all the printable characters that are possible, and most of the situation this works. Like in most of the case, but otherwise, how could they have inserted that command over here, right? If it wasn't a printable character at all. Otherwise, you can just iterate from 0 to 256 everything. So, any other question from? Okay, let's move on. Let's not waste time. Coming to shell. So these shells will be easier for those people who have used Linux and know the Linux command. But then again, I just Googled most of the commands and I was able to get the answer. So the first one is try locating the flag. I can just don't know how many times I have to do.
I don't know if many of them knows about SSH.
Okay.
So you could tell that also.
Yes. About little. Like so. Let me just open the manual. So like yeah, it's a program which, so over here if you look into this thing, they are asking you to they have given you a particular, this is the particular host and they're giving you a user, and this -p stands for port. So like every machine has a particular, like right now if you look into the my machine, if I do who am I, I'm on, right? It's also showing over here. So this is the port. My machine is Kali, and so this is the user. My machine is Kali, and there are all the ports which are ranging from I think 100 to something 999. I'm not sure. So you can actually log into those machines with the help of this client called SSH. But of course, you need password and sometimes you will have sometimes you need SSH key, which can which is like a key to a lock. So if you have the particular right SSH key, you can log in. Other times you have to put password over here. So in this questions, what they have asked you to do is that you're given a particular machine is set up. It's kind of like not the ones that you're working on, and you have to SSH into this machine and you try to locate the flag. Also, like if you move on to like bigger certificates and there are certain certificates related to cybersecurity field like OWASP. These are like and not OWASP, OSCP. So if you go to this, if you actually try to get the certificate, you will be given machines similar to this one, and you have to SSH into those machines, and you have to find flags and stuffs like this, right? So, Dukanda, you will like to add anything?
Okay, so basically, what they need to know is that we're actually logging in into a remote machine where we have restricted capabilities. In our missions, we are the super user, we are the main user. But in most of the real world cases like this one, you will have restricted capabilities on the machine, and you will have to find something by which you can get the flag. And SSH is one of the most used commands nowadays because everything lies in the cloud, and to get access you have to actually log in into the machine. So you can show them this one.
Yeah. So okay, so I did SSH and they gave me the password and I entered the password and I'm right now into their machine. So this is not my machine, right? If I write who am I over here, so it says user, but in my machine it showed on over, right? Now what I do is I just change this terminal is not very good. Like I cannot move on to the upper the previous command, so I just change it to bin bash. And yeah. So the question was all about, say, there was nothing much in the question. It says try to locate the flag. So if it is asking us to try to locate the flag, probably there's a high chance the flag is hidden. So you can use this command called ls in Linux, which is list all the file. There is one file. So if you look into this flag, it says something like way too easy and there is a smiling emoji. You can add tags to this command actually. So let me show you the man page of this command. The man is not found. Lol. So there is always refer to the man page if you're stuck at a Linux command. They are much more verbose than any other resource you will find online. I think you will find this one also Linux man pages in online as well. So there is one tag called /a, which says do not ignore entry starting with dot. In Linux, you might have noticed that all the hidden files start with dot. I think the same thing also works in Android. Android is also based on Linux only. So let's add ls-a. You will find there is another flag over here, another file, which is .flag.txt. And since it has a dot in front, it is hidden. And that's why when you did ls, I couldn't see that flag. And if you catch that flag over here, you see, nothing is hidden. It gives you the flag, the actual flag, right? And there are other ls commands as well. So let me just give you. So ls-a will show you all the hidden files as well. You can see there are lots of hidden files. ls minus l will list the file along with the particular properties. This one represents the file. What do you say? Properties, I guess. So D stands for it is a directory. Art. So then this one is grouped into first comes the user who is using, then is I think the group, then the owner, right?
First the owner, then the group, then other users.
Achha, first one is the owner, then the group, then the other users, exactly. And this one shows the size. This one again I forgot. This one is the owner, right?
Yeah, owner and group.
Owner and group, yeah. You can just Google this stuff as well. And this shows the date when it was created or I think updated. And yeah, what else can I do? Yeah, basically that's it. And you can also always, there's another tag called H, which will ls-sh, I guess. Yeah, so ls-s will show you the file sizes. And if you add H tag to it, it will show you in the human readable form. You can see it says 4, but it says 4.0 K. You can always Google this stuff. You can learn more about it. Don't actually, I won't ask you to learn more about it. Just keep in mind and always use this in your day-to-day activities. And slowly we get used to these commands as well. Moving on to the next one, we have, can you hear it? So again, we have given an SSH over here. You can, there's so many terminals. Let me close some of the terminals. Okay. And okay, so right now there is no such file over here. You can see this is totally empty, but it says, can you hear the echo? So now might be we have to echo something, right? Now, whenever you are at a machine, there are certain variables which are used by the machine, but they're not, like, these are called environment variables because you're in a different environment, right? And you can access the environment variables. This is something, I think I was, yeah, so you can look at environment variables more. So over here, you can look at all the environment variables by the env command. If you press the env command, it shows you all the environment variables over here, right? It can show what the SSH connection is using, the user, the current PWD is the current path, I mean, right? Also print working directory / user over here. It shows there is, of course, this shows the flag over here. So someone has set the environment variable. It shows the shell I'm using and everything. And the reason it says, can you hear the echo or the thing? You can, if you could have guessed properly. So you have to echo the flag somehow, right? So you could do something like this. Echo $flag, and that will give you the flag. Basically, you can echo anything that's provided in the environment variable. And so like right now, I can create my own environment variable. Not sure I have the permissions over here. I'm creating my own terminal. That's why Deepan Bhaiya mentioned that it's a restricted, so you cannot just hop into any other places and create files.
You can actually do a key equal to value. It will work. But it can get dissipated by in the current after you write it.
Oh, okay, achha. So I think okay, got it.
Yeah. You can and if you do, it will work.
Yeah. So yeah.
Without export also, it would work.
Without export also. Also, export basically saves it, right? Yeah.
It sends it out to the parent shell.
Got it. Even I am done. Cool. So you can see over here, I said, let me just not write key over. I can set any other environment variables. Let's say name I've given ARAST something, and echo I'm echoing that particular environment variable. You see, it's just displaying echoing that particular environment, the value of that variable. Yeah, you can learn. I think we showed this. Someone asked what the echo command does in the induction, and we told it over there. It just prints something. It prints whatever you asked it to print. Moving on. Then there is reading between the lines. So let's look at. Oops. So right now, what okay, come on. So I don't remember which problem this one was. Bash. Is there any file given? Yeah, flag. Okay, I think this is a very large file, something like that. It's large. Oh yeah. So there's this is where the command grep that comes into. See, you see, it's a very big file, and you cannot manually search stuff. So what you can do is you can cat that file, and this is something called piping. Okay, I forgot to mention. So you're taking the output of this file and you're piping it into the next operation. In the next operation is something that I'm doing grep, and I can do this one, and probably it will show me the file over here, the flag over here. I think grep also allows you to provide the file name, right? Yeah, so you can do that as well.
You can also try writing a regular expression there, per type.
I don't know how to write regular. I mean, I know how to write, but I'm not very good at writing regular expression.
You can try it like cat flag.txt grep minus p capital P.
Grep minus capital P, then
Quotation. Say glug, GLEG,
LEG.
then slash, backslash, and then not this one, escaping one,
Oh, sorry.
and that bracket.
Which one? This one? No.
Yeah, other one. Try.
This one?
No. Opening brace.
This one?
Second bracket.
This one?
Yeah.
Really? So yeah, so
That, like you could actually get the exactly that one.
yeah. So like exactly. I think
Yeah, you can also do it like that. Then dot star in
closing bracket.
bracket. Yeah. So,
Backslash closing bracket, right?
yeah. Then also it is showing down. Okay.
I think one more, like exactly something was to check.
You can actually print out the exact portion. Just.
Yeah, I think it was there. Text patterns minus E, I guess.
Okay, right. Minus EP, yeah, it will work. P is per
Acha,
type.
exactly. What?
Minus A minus P. So minus A requires that file name also. It is actually used to work on a file.
Flag.txt.
It-
Okay, minus EP. It
oh my god.
didn't even grep. Just printed everything.
Yeah.
Is there any example given? A digest file, something is often combined with NS5 option. Okay. Line regex. Byte offset with file name, label, line number, and all.
Okay, grep minus W, minus WP.
Minus WP.
Yeah.
It returned nothing. It's the
Try the previous one.
okay. Over here, but with WP.
WP. Exact match is W. It is not taking, W doesn't take the pattern. Another one is capital E.
Capital E. It's just pretty like that.
Okay, you can leave it.
Okay, yeah, so like, there is a way, I mean, we don't remember, but where you can exactly print that part, just the entire part, which matches the regex, only that part. I think we have to provide something that before something like absolute or something was there, man. That this thing, what it's called, to match it exactly. At
This
that
is what the start of the line.
Achha, this was start of the line. Okay, I don't remember. Anyways, moving on to the next one, spot the difference. The name gives you a hint actually. So, I mean, I'm getting the hint because I'm pretty used to this working with this Linux machine. So I know some of the most commonly used commands, and if you keep using Linux, eventually you will also get used to those commands as well. So, yes. So what is given? Alice text is given, Bob text is given. You can, I don't know what was your approach? Wow. So this is a very big text, and Bob's text will be equally big, I guess. But what you can do is, it's asking to find the difference, right? And there is this command called def, which will exactly give you the difference between these two text files. And you can run over here, and here you see it's a very familiar lead, which is a small change can make huge difference. So this is the flag. You wrap it around the given syntax that's provided, and you will get the flag over here. That one was spot the difference. It's recorded, so you can later on, I'm not writing the commands that I'm using, but later on you can refer to this command, read the man pages, read the usages online, and you'll get more used to it. Moving on to the next challenge, which is this challenge? Bundle in the jungle. I think Onik, you solved this question, right? Okay, so I've not seen this question actually. Let's try this one. Oh, is it something like this huge
Nested folders.
nested folders? So I can do something like find, I guess, right? Find minus type minus D or minus type D. Okay,
Find it.
I don't want directory, I want files. Is there a flag.txt file at the end?
I think you can recursively grep minus R.
You can grep, okay.
Or grep minus NRW.
Capital R. Acha NRW.
NRW you can use. NRW. Yeah, now glug over the text.
Really? Wow.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I wasn't aware of this thing. All I would be doing was probably go through all the files and you can
Yeah.
cat those files and then probably grep.
This is what I did.
It's very slow. Of course, it's very slow because it's finding, then it's passing through this one, then it's passing through this one. Whereas this is using the recursive approach of the grep command only. Damn, it's really slow. Okay, so this command.
Excerpts take very much time. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to add this command as well. Where is this? If you guys have any other approach, you can please do share. Okay, I here it found it. It's still looking for it, so close it. Okay, so yeah, so it was I did not explain the question. So what it is doing over here is that it's grepping, but it's recursively grepping all the files that are present. Like initially it was having forest, then there was inside there were lots of trees. Is there a tree command over here? A tree command not found. Okay, fine. So it looked at forest, then tree, then all the branches, then the leaves, and then there was file. So it kept on recursively looking for this command glug over here. What the bad approach that I did was I looked for all the files that are of type F, which is that is a type file. Then I passed it to exargs. Exargs is basically it will run a particular command on every single part. Like if you like look into my MC, I'm going to create a file test, and it's blank. So I can do something like sequence 5. So I'm going to pass this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to exargs, and I'm going to create a new file. Let's say touch, and you can see it will have created 5 files for me. Right? So this is what exargs does. So exarg is what it is doing is catting all the, I don't know, catting is a word. So it's running cat on all the files, and then it's doing grep on the file and looking for the particular term glug. But don't use this one, it's very slow, as you saw. Use the recursive approach of grep, it's much faster. Okay. Where was I? Time travel. Going to show, I think most of you have probably solved this one. This is all about looking into the history. So there is this command called history. I'm going to show it over here as well, which will show all the commands that you've used over here. And I think there was this, some flag was echoed in the history, and you can solve it. I'm not diving deep because already a lot of time is gone. Sort.me. So yeah, let's look into this one. as far as I remember, there was a large. Let's look at the problem statement. It says he hides his MD5 hash password in a hash word list, which occurs only once. So among all in the file, there are lots of MD5 hashes. If you do not know about what MD5 hash is, always Google it. It's right now obsolete because there are lots of collisions that has occurred for MD5, and it's kind of like a hash. It's a one-way hash, also known as asymmetric encryption, because once you convert a particular value to the hash, you cannot get the value from the hash. But as I said, it's obsolete because there are lots of websites which holds big databases of what the particular hash refer to, like the commonly used, if you have the MD5 hash of password, then 12345. All these are very common, and some websites like crackstation.net has a huge database of all those commonly used hashes. So I'm adding this website. Did I log in? Okay, that's 1 to 3. So this is the file. If you look at the count of the file, so it is having something like 2001 lines. I googled for this command actually. So I think there was one command in awk. Do you guys have any other solution? So yeah, I use this one. I just googled it, get the unique line from a list of lines in Linux terminal, and it showed me the command, and there you see. You can learn more about the awk command. I don't even know much about the awk command. But if you guys had any other approach, you can share. Also, if someone comments, just let me know. I'm not reading the comments frequently.
You could also use the unique command, I guess.
Yeah, I saw that one also.
Unique some flag but minus u.
यूनिक कमांड से हो जाएगा.
minus u. Short unique minus u. हो जाना चाहिए.
Yeah, this is also one of the solutions. So yeah, so what is doing, again, I'm using piping over here. Piping is very common, you will be using piping a lot. So I'm again catting mat.txt, and then I'm sorting it out. So, and then I'm applying unique minus u. If you just apply unique, it will give you only the ones that are not, only the unique files. So just list, if there is an occurrence, it will just print it out. And unique minus u will just remove those which have occurred multiple times and give you the one that has only occurred once. Then this one is a MD5 hash, and you can just copy and paste it over here. Crack hash, and there you go, bad boy. So you can see it's a very simple string, and that's why there is a hash of that exists in this database of this one. You can glug and then bad boy, and you will get the solution. Going with the last one, this is the crack the safe. This is not a very good question, to be honest. It was plain brute force. So there is a particular trick to solve these questions. Not trick, I would say, there is a particular method you can approach. The only solution is you have to write a script, because you cannot manually iterate through all the solutions. And every single time you're going to enter a particular character, and it's going to output something, and you have to check that one. So I wrote a script, and again, okay, so this is what I'm using. I'm using pawn tools over here. I mentioned it over here. Yeah, pawn tools. You can use this pawn tools. It's very, very it's a one-way, what can I say? It's going to help you solve questions starting from, binary exploitation or reversing to questions like this. There are a couple of solutions where they have used socket, but this is much simpler. As you can see, it's a very small code. What I'm doing is there is one module in pawn which is called the remote, and that will help you connect to a particular host and the port. So over here, I'm just explaining what's going on over here. So you see, it's connecting with that, and it returns me an object, and I'm receiving one line, and that received line is basically this one. Do I have the command? Is it which one? I think it is else. Put 0, 0. Also, nc is a netcat command, right? Okay, I'll deliver that. So again, it's a Linux tool which is used to read write data across the network connections, and yes, it is also known as the TCP Swiss Army knife because it has lots of what can I say, it's very powerful. You can read about it over here as well. So yeah, so this line, so it's going to receive this line, and then I'm going to create a particular data. So what I've done is I'm started from values 1099. You can start from 0 to everything, 9999, and I'm creating the data over here. I'm just padding it with the number of zeros. Like if it's like 10, I will add 2 zeros in the beginning. So this is what it's doing, and then I'm just sending that particular data, and then again I'm receiving. If the received string, like over here, it can type it first. It will type it something like this, and it receives something like too bad, try again. Now the reason I've added decode to it is because the received line gives us binary, and not binary, in byte form actually. So you can decode it to the ASCII format, and then I'm checking if it's not if it is not too bad, try again, then it will break. It took a long time to iterate through this one. So I'm just running this. What happened to my Python?
Pawn tools.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's installed. Otherwise, I haven't wrote the code. I think it is. Yeah. So.
Lol.
Yeah, I think it uses the other one. Okay, so why cannot I? Can I zoom this one? Can I zoom the terminal? All. Okay, so here you can see it's trying. It's opening a socket. It's trying a particular number, and it's trying. If it's too bad, try again. Then it's again trying. It's keep on doing that. I think the solution was something like 3000 something, right? I'm not sure. Like something was there.
Yeah, 3268 or something.
Yeah. So 3856.
3856.
So it was the line 3856 which gave the flag. Now, this kind of questions are you will not find very often, because you have nothing to do over here. Just write the code and wait for the flag to come. So I don't know why they gave this one, but still fine. So far we have done with the shell, and don't worry. We'll all this code script that I've written I will upload those to GitHub, and you can read, look into the files. You can learn more about this after your midterm or before. Any questions so far? No question. People reduced from 20 to 16. Anyways.
Acha, just a second. Let me just restart the recording. Its file is too large actually.
Yeah, sure.